Good evening, aspirants. Welcome to daily news analysis of Shankar Academy. Today's date is 28th of February 2024. Displayed here are the articles that we're going to discuss today. So without much delay, let us get into the first news article discussion. Look at this article. This science page article talks about the recent discovery of a new form of life called obelisks. It was identified through genetic analysis of a bacteria in a human gut and mouth. In this context, let us learn about obelisks from the prelims perspective. Firstly, let us understand about the tiny infectious agent virus and viroids. Viruses are infectious agents composed of genetic material, either DNA or RNA, surrounded by a protein coat. They can only replicate within host cells and rely on the host cell's machinery to reproduce, as they lack the cellular machinery for the self-reproduction. Example of virus include the influenza virus, human immunodeficiency virus HIV, herpes simplex virus. Whereas viroids are subviral small circular RNA molecules that lack a protein coat. Unlike viruses, they do not encode any proteins and they rely solely on host cellular machinery for replication. Viroids are known to cause certain plant diseases by interfering with normal cellular processes. An example is the potato spindle tumbler viroid, which causes disease in potato plants. With this basic understanding, let us know how the obelix is found. See, researchers at Stanford University utilized next generation sequencing to analyze RNA from bacteria in the human gut. Here the term NGS is very important. Next generation sequencing, NGS, is a type of DNA sequencing that determines the sequence of DNA or RNA to study genetic variations associated with diseases or other biological phenomena. It contains three basic steps: library preparation, sequencing, and data analysis. Library preparation is nothing but the process of preparing a pool of DNA or RNA from the different organisms of a particular species. During the sequencing process of next generation sequencing, the DNA or RNA fragments contained within the NGS library are sequenced to determine their nucleotide sequences. During the data analysis stage of the next generation sequencing NGS, the raw sequencing data generated from the sequencing platform is processed and analyzed to extract biological information. In other words, the bulk data generated from sequencing platform is fed to computers, which piece together the complete sequence information. This is how the entire NGS process runs. While the traditional genome sequencing, often referred to as Sanger sequencing method, which sequences only a single DNA fragment at a time, NGS is massively parallel, sequencing millions of fragments simultaneously per run. This process involves sequencing hundreds to thousands of genes at one time. So when researchers used next generation sequencing to analyze RNA from bacteria in the human gut, they discovered a new life form, obelisks. Now let us see the characteristics of the newly identified form of obelisk. See, obelisks is simpler than virus but more complex than the viroids. That is, they lie in between viruses and viroids in terms of simplicity and characteristics. Obelisks have circular RNA genomes similar to viroids, but the RNA genomes in obelisk is longer than viroid and code for two distinct proteins. It is found in both gut and oral bacteria within the human body. During research, it is found that the obelix is hosted by the Streptococcus sanguinea bacterium commonly found in the human mouth. That is, the obelix infect and replicate within these bacterial cells. But to know other information like how do they make copies of their genome, how do they transmit, are they pathogenic to bacteria, how did they evolve, do they have roles to play in the human health or disease, we have to wait further research. So that's all about this new life form. With this, let us move on to the next news article. Look at this article. This Indian Express article talks about the concept of LLM, which is a backbone of various AI chatbots like ChatGPT, Gemini, etc. As we all know, these are the examples of some generative AI models which converse with humans in doing tasks. This is made possible due to large language model or LLM. This is the crux of this article. Now let us understand about LLMs from the prelims perspective. What is large language model, LLM? See, the large language model is a type of artificial intelligence algorithm that uses deep learning techniques and massively large data sets. Know that it uses them to understand, summarize, generate and predict new content. Now let us see the features of LLM. Firstly, the term large symbolize two things. They are enormous size of their training data and parameter count. See, the parameters define the skill of the model in solving a specific problem. Secondly, they are used for general purpose. See, it is sufficient to solve general problems that are based on the commonality of human language regardless of specific tasks. To simply put, LLM is likely a super smart computer program that can comprehend and create human-like text. Know that it is trained on a massive data sets which are essentially patterns, structures, and relationship with languages. Moreover, we can say that they are tools that helps computers understand and produce human language. Now let us see the types of LLMs. On the basis of architectures, LLMs are three types: auto-regressive, transformer-based, and encoder-decoder. See, GPT-3 is an example of auto-regressive model as they predict the next word in a sequence based on a previous word used. Secondly, Lambda or Gemini, formerly Bard, are transformer-based ones. See, they use a specific type of neural network architecture for language processing. Thirdly, encoder-decoder models will encode a input text into a representation and then decode into another language or format. Now let us see the working of LLM. See, at the core of this technique lies deep learning. It means training of artificial neural networks which are mathematical models. Note that they are believed to be inspired by the structure and functions of the human brain. For LLMs, this neural network learns to predict the probability of a word or a sequence of words given in the previous words in a sentence. As I mentioned earlier, this is done by analyzing the patterns and relationship between words in the dataset used for training. Once trained, an LLM will predict the most likely next word or sequence based on inputs also known as prompts. So this is all about LLMs. With this, let us move on to the next news article. India has announced the names of 4 astronauts for the Gaganyaan human spaceflight mission, which is set for launch in 2025. The chosen astronauts are Group Captain Prashanth Balakrishna Nair, Group Captain Ajit Krishnan, Group Captain Angad Pratap, and Wing Commander Shubhanshu Shukla. The astronauts have undergone rigorous training in Russia under the ISRO astronaut training facility in Bangalore. This is about the news article. In this context, let us see some important points about Gaganyaan mission. The Gaganyaan mission is India's ambitious human spaceflight program. The mission aims at sending Indian astronauts, also known as Vaimnauts, into the space. This is basically a technology demonstration mission. Through this mission, ISRO aims to demonstrate human spaceflight capability by launching a crew of 3 members to an orbit of 400 km for 3-day mission and bring them back safely to the Earth. LMV-3, that is Launch Vehicle Mark III, will be used to launch Gaganyaan mission. Now let us see the important components of this mission. There are 2 important modules in Gaganyaan: crew module and service module. The crew module is the habitable part with Earth-like environment in space. The crew model has human-centric products and life support systems. It is also designed for re-entry to ensure safety of the crew. The service model will be used for providing necessary support to crew model while in orbit. It contains a thermal system, propulsion system, power system, avionics system, and development mechanisms. It remains attached to the crew model until the mission ends. These are the important components of this mission. Now let us see the significance of this mission. Firstly, it will demonstrate human spaceflight capabilities. This in turn will lay the foundation for a sustained Indian human space exploration program in a long run. Secondly, the mission will help in environment generation and human resource development in advanced science and R&D activities. Thirdly, in future missions, scientists can conduct experiments in microgravity to advance scientific knowledge in various fields, including biology, material science, and astronomy. Then the mission will technically equip India for further collaborations in the global space station development. Then it will motivate our youth to study and choose a career in hard sciences. Finally, the mission will strengthen international partnerships and global security through the sharing of challenging and peaceful goals. These are some of the significance of this mission. So that's all regarding this discussion. With this, let us move on to the next news article. Look at this article. Department of Biotechnology announced the completion of the 10,000 genome project in India. See, this is an attempt to create a reference database of whole genome sequence of India. This is the crux of this article. In our discussion, let us understand about the genome project from prelims perspective. Before that, we shall see about genome. See, genome is a sum of all genetic materials or complete set of DNA in an individual. On the other words, DNA is the unit forming genome. As we all know, DNA is a long, coiled, double helix molecule that contains genetic instructions. In this DNA, a short section that contains a code for a specific protein called genes. Note that these genes are present on chromosomes found inside the nucleus of a living cell. So we can say that the genome of an individual consists of 23 pairs of chromosomes located in the cell's nucleus as well as a small chromosome in the cell's mitochondria. A genome contains all the information needed for an individual to develop and function. Now with this basics, let us see what is genome sequencing. Genome sequencing is nothing but figuring out the order of DNA nucleotides or bases in the genome. As you all know, DNA is made up of 4 building blocks called nucleotides. These 4 nucleotides are adenine, thymine, guanine and cytosine. And these nucleotides attach to each other. That is, A gets to attach to T, likewise G with C. They get attached to each other to form chemical bonds called base pairs. These base pairs only connect 2 DNA strands. So the genome sequence is nothing but figure out the order of adenine, cytosine, guanine and thymine that makes up the organism's DNA. It is a laboratory based method and simply a very long string of letters in a mysterious language. Now let us see about the project of genome sequencing. See, Genome India project is a gene mapping project of the Department of Biotechnology under Ministry of Science and Technology. Know that it was launched with the goal of creating a comprehensive database of genetic variations among the Indian population. Moreover, the project aims to sequence the genome of over 10,000 Indians from different regions of the country and establish a reference genome for the Indian population. So that's all about the genome project in India. With this, let us move on to the next news article. Look at this article. India is planning to seek a 4-year delay for the implementation of European Union's contentious carbon tax. See, this will provide more breathing space to its exporting industries of India. This is the crux of this article. In our discussion, we shall understand about carbon taxes in detail. Firstly, what is carbon tax? The idea of carbon pricing had its roots in Arthur Pigou's book, The Economics of Welfare. In this, he talks about the cost which is imposed on the carbon pollution. Know that this will ensure the cost of emitting greenhouse gases is reflected in the prices of commodity or services. Moreover, it will force the firms to either reduce the emission or compensate for the emission through various clean projects. Note that carbon pricing is considered a cost-effective measure to reduce the negative externalities associated with the carbon dioxide emissions. Now with these basics, let us discuss about carbon taxes in detail. Firstly, with the international crediting mechanisms or baselines and credit system. See, according to Kyoto Protocol, industrialized Annex B countries can purchase certified emission reduction (CER) credits from developing countries to offset their emissions. Know that it is a credit equivalent to 1 ton of carbon dioxide. Secondly, with the Clean Development Mechanism. See, this is the international standardized emissions offset instrument governed by UNFCCC. It will allow countries to fund projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions in other countries. Thirdly, we are going to see about CBAM. See, in 2021, the European Union proposed Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism (CBAM). It is a form of carbon tax or duties imposed on the goods of some products. Know that these duties will be based on the amount of carbon which got emitted during the production process of such products. On continuing our discussion, CBAM is the part of the Fit for 55 in 2030 package of the European Union. With this package, the European Union aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. Note that the CBAM will enter into force in transitional form 1st October 2023. Then the permanent system will enter into force on 1st January 2026. Now let us see what is the process of CBAM, calculation of carbon footprint. Consider a product was imported into Europe, then to determine the carbon content of an imported product, the CBAM would require the importer to provide an information about the carbon footprint of the product. This includes the emissions generated in its production, transport and distribution of the product. Know that with the CBAM, there will be an independent body to verify this information as given by the importers. Moreover, there is also a means of self-certification of carbon content based on an approved methodology. This is the first step of the process. Next is calculation of carbon price. The carbon price is a price that importer would pay for the product. Know that it is based on the carbon content of the product and the price of carbon allowances in the country of import. The main aim of CBAM is to create a level playing field between domestic producers who are already paying the carbon prices and importers of similar products. Next is payment of carbon price. The importer would pay the already calculated carbon price at the border at the time of imports. An important point is the revenue generated from the CBAM would be used to support climate actions of EU or to offset the cost of EU industries that are subjected to various carbon pricing policies. So this is all about the carbon tax. With this, let us move on to the next news article. Look at this editorial article. The article is discussing the need for reforms in the United Nations. Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, expresses concern about the UN's future due to lack of unity among UNSC members. He says that the current global order, which was established after World War II, is now at risk. According to the author, the United Nations, which was created to prevent global conflicts, is now facing challenges in its structure and authority. See, the United Nations was founded on the principle of sovereign equality, right? But the Security Council's 5 permanent members with their veto power have created an imbalance in the United Nations system. So there was a need to reform the structure of United Nations. This is the crux of this news article. In this context, let us understand the important points mentioned in the article through our mains answer writing approach. So this is the question. Discuss the challenges faced by United Nations system in the current global context. Suggest reforms that could make the United Nations and its associated structures more relevant and responsive. Question comes under the syllabus of GS paper 2. If you look at the question, it's a straightforward one. The question demands two things. It demands us to answer what are the challenges faced by UN system. The second part of the question demands us to suggest few reforms that can be taken in this regard. So let me be clear once again. We have to list out the challenges and then suggest measures to rectify those challenges. So this will be the structure of our answer. Let us start answering. The question is very specific. Its main focus is on United Nations reforms. So in the introduction, you can give a general intro about the United Nations. You can write like this. The United Nations is an international organization founded in 1945. Currently it has 193 member states. Know that the United Nations Charter outlines the principles of the United Nations. In turn, this will be implemented by its 6 principal organs and various specialized agencies. Even though founded in the backdrop of World War II to maintain global order and peace, the United Nations has multifunctional role ranging from maintaining international peace and security, protecting human rights, promoting sustainable development, combating climate change, protecting rights of laborers, women, children, etc. Finally, add a link statement that leads us to the body of the answer. You can mention that United Nations has completed more than 75 years of existence. In this juncture, let us look at the challenges of United Nations and the various reforms needed. This provides a link between the introduction and the body part. Having completed the introduction, now let us take up the body part. As we have seen earlier, we are going to divide the body part of the answer into 2 parts. In the first part, we shall mention the challenges faced by UN system. In the second part, we will talk about the reforms needed. Now let us see the challenges one by one. Firstly, outdated structure and decision-making process. 5 permanent members, that is P5 members, have veto powers and they are creating imbalances in the United Nations system. The concentration of power in the hands of a few permanent members with the veto power can hinder effective actions on critical global issues. Secondly, lack of representation and inclusivity. The UN's decision-making bodies need to be more representative. See, many countries, especially from Africa and Latin America, lack of sufficient influence and a voice in global policies of UN. Thirdly, ineffective and inefficiency. Ineffectiveness and inefficiency. The UN's bureaucratic structures and complex decision-making processes are slowing down responses to the global challenges. Streamlining the administrative procedures and reducing red tape would help the organization become more efficient and responsive. Fourthly, duplication of efforts among specialized agencies. The UN has numerous specialized agencies, each with its own mandates and resources. Coordinating the work of these agencies to eliminate duplication and improve collaboration is essential for enhancing effectiveness. Lastly, financial stability. There is a need to reassess the formula for assessing financial contributions to the UN budget. Currently, it is largely based on countries' gross national income with a cap on contributions. Some argue that this system does not fairly distribute the financial burden among the countries, leading to imbalances. Also note that UN largely depends on the funding from US and other UNSC members. So this financial dependence on big powers will indirectly affect their unbiased actions on the global issues. So these are some of the important challenges faced by UN system. Now moving on to the second part of the answer, here we shall write about the reforms that are needed to overcome the challenges faced by UN system. Firstly, expanding the United Nations Security Council. UN system should be reformed keeping in pace with the various changes in the post-World War II global order. The rising aspirations of countries should be addressed to make the body more relevant. For example, UNSC should be expanded including India, Germany, Japan, etc. This will increase the credibility of the organization. Also, the veto power should be abolished in order to create a balance in the power system. Secondly, reforming the UN Charter. Know that the UN Charter was created by the winners of World War II. It only talks about the rights but not duties and responsibilities. This should be amended and must include duties and responsibilities at international and national level. Thirdly, strengthening funding and accountability framework. UN should work on formalizing the funding commitments of the countries. This will make UN self-sufficient. Moreover, there should be a proper monitoring and evaluation system to evaluate the various decisions. All these measures will increase the transparency in decision-making process of the body. Lastly and most importantly, equitable representation. Equitable representation of all the regions of the world in UNSC is needed to decentralize the authority of UNSC. This decentralization will enable it to be a more representative and participative body. Moving on to the conclusion part. Thus, by addressing its outdated structure, streamlining its processes, and ensuring financial stability, UN can become a more effective and inclusive global institution. If the reforms are adopted in regular intervals, then UN will keep achieving its mission of promoting peace, security, and development. So that's all about this discussion. So with this, let us move on to the prelims practice question discussion. Look at this previous year question. With the present state of development, artificial intelligence can effectively do which of the following? Here the key word is effectively do. So we don't have to consider things which are in the beginning stage. The first statement is bring down the electricity consumption in the industrial units. Yes, since artificial intelligence reduces work burden, it can bring down the electricity consumption. So the first statement is correct. Create meaningful short stories and songs. Right now AI can create short stories and songs, but most of the times it may not have a meaningful items. So the second statement is incorrect. Next one is disease diagnosis. Yes, this can be done. Text to speech conversion. Yes, this can be done. Wireless transmission of electrical energy. This cannot be done at the moment. So the answer is option B, 1, 3 and 4. Next question is DNA barcoding can be a tool to first assess the age of a plant or animal. This statement is incorrect because DNA does not contain any details of age. Rather, it can be done by radiocarbon dating. Second is distinguish among species that look alike. Yes, it can be done. Identify undesirable animal or plant materials in the processed food. Yes, it can be done. So the answer is option D. Next question. Consider the following statements about carbon border adjustment mechanism. It is a green free trade agreement between USA and European Union. This statement is incorrect because it is not a free trade agreement. Rather, it is a carbon tax on the imported products. So the first statement is incorrect. Next, it is a tool to put a fair price on the carbon emitted during the production of carbon intensive goods which are imported. This statement is correct. Next one is recently the European Commission's Fit to 55 package introduces this mechanism. This statement is also correct. So two statements are correct. So the answer is option B. Next question is consider the following statement about LMV3 launch vehicle Mark III. It is a 3-stage launch vehicle with the solid stage, liquid stage and a cryogenic upper stage. This statement is correct. Next, the cryogenic upper stage C25 is powered by CE20, India's largest cryogenic engine. This statement is also correct. Next is the launch vehicle Mark III is capable of placing 8,000 kg payload in geostationary orbit. This statement is incorrect. Launch vehicle Mark III is capable of placing 8,000 kg payload in the lower Earth orbit. It can only place 4,000 kg in the geostationary orbit. So the third statement is incorrect. So the answer is option B. Displayed here is the mains practice question for you today. Understand the question and try to answer it in the comment section. With this, we come to the end of this news article discussion. If you like the video, do like, share and subscribe to Shankar Academy. Thank you so much for watching.